You're listening to the Bulldog Insider podcast, sponsored by Essentia Health.
Here, our hobbies become our work, and our work becomes our passion. But when joint pain or injuries keep us from doing what we love, it can affect our entire way of life. That's why we meet these challenges head on. Whatever your good day looks like, we'll find it together. This is Essentia Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, like nowhere else. Visit essentiahealth.org.
Hello and welcome to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm Matt Wellens, the Bulldogs hockey beat writer at the Duluth News Tribune and the Rink Live.
And I'm Zach Schneider, the television voice of UMD hockey on My9 Sports.
This week on the podcast, we have Ryan Fanti in our second segment. I caught up with him this week at Amsoil Arena to talk about finally getting that first college shutout last weekend at Western Michigan in the Bulldogs 3-0 win on Saturday. That came after a tough 4-3 loss on Friday, in which Fanti got beat on a breakaway in the closing minutes. Zach, watching from afar there down in the Twin Cities on NCHC TV, what were your big takeaways from the Bulldogs split at Western Michigan last weekend?
It was a fun series to watch. And I know you and Bruce and the other media contingent there, always view it from a different perspective when you're working, but I like taking advantage of when I get to watch the team kind of purely from a fan and perspective, and maybe a little bit of prep for the series that we have coming up. It's a little bit tougher to grade individual players when you watch from afar, just because the camera doesn't always catch some of the finer points of the game, and is really focused on where the puck is and stuff like that. But I thought Fanti played well on Saturday, which was great to see. I thought he played well on Friday. Couple really good goals by Western. But I mean, the biggest thing from a team perspective from UMB is that, the stick-to-itiveness of this group, has not changed in the last decade, really, under Scott Sandlin. And that's no different with this year's team, to come back from a tough loss on Friday and have a fairly dominant performance on Saturday against what I think is a very good Western Michigan team. I think was encouraging, especially in the first conference series of the year. And I think that the other big takeaway is that Western Michigan probably won't finish seventh in the NCHC, dating back to our conversation last week. That's a very good Broncos team. And if they stay healthy throughout the year, I'm guessing that come the end of the year, we can revisit that. And I might have to eat some crow on that prediction, because I think they're stronger top to bottom than I thought they would be. We knew they were going to be able to score, but I think defensively they're a better team than I thought they would be, at least early on. And so we'll see if that continues. But that was a fun series of college hockey to watch.
Yeah, it was fun to watch in person there. And you mentioned watching on NCHC TV. Interesting camera angles of Lawson Ice Arena, as that rink kind of resembles some of the high school rinks you'd see around here in Duluth, like Heritage Center and such. Western, I have Western ranked pretty high, and I thought they looked better than, that's a really good team. That's one of the top, I can't remember exactly where I had them in my USCHO poll, but close to the top five. They're definitely a top five team, I think, in the country. It helps that they don't have the best goaltender in the league, but they have a very capable, reliable goaltender in Brandon Busey. And that's kind of always been the piece that I think the Broncos were missing. When you talked about the Bulldogs, that stick-to-itiveness, I don't know if that's a real word there or not, but we'll start using it as it's
like four words all combined.
Yeah, right. I think it's a great word to describe the Bulldogs. That was a tough loss on Friday, because I think the Bulldogs played well enough to win that game, fought back twice from a 2-0 and 1-0 deficit. But give up that late goal. And I know Scott Sandlin said it was a goal that maybe Ryan Fanti wanted to have back. I think it was a goal the entire Bulldog team wanted back. I think it's unfair to put that one just on Fanti. That was a team goal at the end there to give up. Kudos to the Broncos for putting that one in, but to bounce back the way they did from that moment and not get down on themselves, to bounce back with a pretty dominating performance on Saturday and win like that, I thought that spoke volumes of this team, that they're able to rebound like that, and that Fanti was able to rebound like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough league, right? And if you can go into somebody else's building, and we know how tough Kalamazoo is to play in. Lawson is a fun rink, but a tough rink. And to lose like that on Friday, to lose in any way on Friday and come back and win on Saturday in the NCHC, it's what coaches would call a good split. And so it's a good split for UMD. And now they're on to Colorado College, but that one's at home. And these are two games this weekend, Friday and Saturday, that UMD will be expected to win, heavily favored if the odds makers worked on college hockey. So now they need to come back and have a game like Saturday 2 times in a row this weekend. And that's what they need to do at home. And that's how you compete in the NCHC.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'll have my interview with Ryan Fanti, and then Zach will rejoin me, and we're going to let Bruce Ciskie from KDAL come back on the podcast for a second consecutive week as well. You're listening to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
Hey there, my name is Samantha Erkkila, and I'm the host of the Duluth News Tribune Minute podcast. Hear the most important news of the day, including weather and sports, from Duluth, Minnesota, and from around the Northland. Join me and my fellow reporters as we take you through the local news you need to start your day. Episodes are released Monday through Friday and are available on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for supporting local journalism.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm Matt Wellens here at Amsoil Arena with Bulldogs junior goaltender Ryan Fanti. Ryan, coming off the split at Western, you get that first career college shutout. You and I talked a little bit about that on Saturday night. You mentioned you had to wait till your junior year, though I feel like you needed, I should have thrown an asterisk in there. You didn't play your freshman year, so really year 2 you get that first shutout. How'd that feel? And is it a monkey off a back of a goaltender to get that first, 0 out of the way?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Felt really good, obviously. I mean, at the end of the day, we just want to win as a team. And, I had a few opportunities last year where, we won by more than a goal margin. And, I let one in the last couple of minutes. So, it's always in the back of your mind. And we always like to joke around about it. Patter and I always giving me crap for, not getting it done yet or whatever it is. But, yeah, you could say that. I mean, it's not something that you think about all the time. But, obviously, it's nice to get the first one under the belt and, hopefully a few more follow.
So Patter's out there saying he had just as many shutouts as you, is what you're saying.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly.
Well, he's still tied with Stayskill now. I went back and looked. Zach's still looking for his first. Shutouts. We were talking about this. We do a Rink Live kind of weekend recap on Instagram. And after Dryden Mackay had, broke the shutout record for men's hockey, we were talking like, football, the old is, our wins a quarterback stat or a team stat. I think it comes up a lot with goalies too. Goalies sometimes get pegged with their win-loss record, but I always think back to poor Nick Deary, who got his first career shutout in a 0-0 tie against Bemidji State. Hunter Shepard, he had a lot of shutouts here. He used to always deflect and say, well, it was a team thing. And he had a pretty good defense in front of him that he liked to remind us all the time too. Shutouts, is that a pure goaltender stat, or do you think that should be more of a team stat? And should teams be getting more credit for those?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I would say more on the team side as well. You might not think about it as an outsider or someone that, doesn't know the game as well as we do, but, everything comes down to it on, how many shots you're giving up, grade A opportunities, the penalty kill, even just things like, if you're winning a game, there's just the threat of them scoring isn't as great, because you got momentum in their end, their end of the rink. So I think, and you can look back to Dryden McKay, obviously he's one hell of a goaltender. He's having some success and he's going to continue to have some success. But, you look at the team that he's played on, and it's not saying that other goalies haven't had great teams, but Mankato's been one hell of a force to be reckoned with the past 3 years. And, they're run by a great coach and they have a great program that's known for, their defensive zone and scoring big goals. So I think it's a little bit of both, but I would lean a little bit more to the side of a team rather than just putting it all on the goaltender.
You had, and I think it was middle of the third period there. It was before the whistles started flying, and you guys were going on the penalty kill. I think 19 saves. I'm wondering what was going through your mind in that game Saturday as it's 2-0, 3-0. It looks like you're on the route to shutout, and then you guys start going on the penalty kill. And Western really picked up the shots. I actually had to take him back. I didn't realize 35 career saves. That's a career high for you. What was that game like? And was it going through your mind at all? Like, I got to preserve this for my first shutout. Did that cross your mind at all at any point on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, going into the third period there, I think we were up 2-0. So, it was still, game was far from won. And, even when we got that third one, I was just trying to continue in my head, even with 5-7 minutes left. Any team in our league can do it. But, just with Western and the firepower they've had lately, I just kept telling myself, it's not even about that. We still got to win this game. They're more than capable of scoring 2 or 3 in a matter of minutes. So, that's kind of how my mindset was throughout the game. And, you don't want to give them any momentum especially within Lawson Arena with their fans and everything that can happen easily. So, I mean, maybe starting down the line of when it was in the last minute or so when we were up by 3, maybe that started creeping in my head a little bit. But I think that was kind of the mindset that I was just focusing on getting the win and preserving the 3 points for us.
Would you be willing to go through your entire career without a shutout if it meant you could score a goal? And I'm going to say not a 3-on-3 goal, a regulation goal.
That's a really good question, Matt. Honestly, one of my goals are to try and get that. I think every goalie has that somewhere down in their heart. But I wouldn't say that. I think you got to look as more of a selfless aspect. If you're going to get shutouts, it's mean your team's going to win more rather than getting that goal. So I think that's the right answer, is to say I'd rather have a few shutouts than a goal on the board for sure.
I remember Maddie Rooney when they brought in the 3-on-3. She was really excited because she thought that was her best opportunity to get a goal as a goalie, though then 3-on-3 stats didn't count as stats. She was kind of heartbroken about that. Do you have like what is the perfect scenario for a goalie to get that goal? Do you have like a play in mind? Like, if you saw something happen on the ice, this is my moment to get that goal?
Yeah, I actually think I tried in juniors once, Matt. It didn't go well for me. I think it actually ended up in my own net just by chance. But perfect scenario, I think every goalie. I think if you ever try and shoot for an open net when you're up by 1, I think your coach is gonna, give you a real dirty look and probably have a word with you after the game. So I think at least being up by 2 is probably an unwritten rule. And then I don't know, you got to have some time. I think if they dump a puck in and they dump it right to you, not if they rim it. If the puck's not rolling, if it's pretty flat. Obviously, you got to be confident with that you're able to do it, right? Obviously, we screw around in practice every once in a while and be shooting pucks all the way down. But, you got to be confident, the situation, the scenario with the goal margin, just what the game situation is. If it's a regular season, you're not going to be doing it in a national championship game. Different things like that. So I think it all comes down. It needs to be a perfect moment. Like I said, if they dump it right on you and it's not rolling and, you don't have too much pressure coming on you right away where you might have a second or two to corral the puck. So I think there's a few things that go into it, but it's not too often where the opportunity happens. So
I love that. I feel like you've really deeply thought this through of when you said you tried it once in juniors. Was this with the Wilderness and it didn't go well?
So I think it was actually at home where we were up by 2 goals and there was like a minute or so left, and it was always something that, you always think about. And I know that I'm capable of doing it and executing it. And the puck actually I wasn't like really thinking about it in the moment, but the puck got dumped right into me. And I was kind of just a little bit outside my crease, like further out, and it took me a second too long to kind of corral it, and I got good wood on it, and I got it way up in the air, but the guy that was forechecking actually ended up like jumping up, and I think it hit his shoulder, and then it went back like below my goal line, and I was like out of my crease, so I was like just scrambling back, and I think he threw it and banked it in off me or something like that. We still ended up winning the game, thank God, because we had that 2-goal margin, but it was funny, I had a couple of fans up behind me where I could hear them say like, I respect the try on it or whatever it was. But yeah, that definitely humbled me and probably discouraged me from trying it, for a good little period of time here.
Wait until you're up by 3 goals.
Yeah, that's probably a better idea.
So whenever we talk about the goalies, Brant Nicklin's name comes up and the influence and everything he's done working with you guys. But one guy I want to highlight is a goaltender. We already mentioned him, that he's been working with for 5 years now. Ben Pat, what kind of influence besides hassling you that you and him were once tied for career shutouts? What kind of influences has Patter been on you and Zach? I almost feel like at this point he's like a second goalie coach for this program out there on the ice.
Yeah, honestly, for people that, you probably have a better idea than most people because you're around us pretty often. But for people that don't know, honestly, Ben's really the heart and soul of this team. He's one of those guys, even if he's not on the ice, you look at some older guys that provide, that heart and soul, guys like Tanner and Noah and stuff. But even though Patter hasn't played yet, he's so much more to this team than anyone could ever know. And saying that as he's, obviously one of my best friends and a goalie partner now for 3 years, like, day in and day out, he has a great attitude coming to the rink, and he comes on the ice and he battles more than he beats us in practice all the time. And he's honestly, like I said, he's more than anyone could ever think of. And, I'm just so grateful that I've, come here and made a relationship with him and, been able to learn from him and have these opportunities in these years to spend some time with him and Zach as well and Shep as well. I think he's done a great job of, like I said, coming in and battling and making other players better as well as us goalies, giving us competition. We have such a great internal competition in this team, whether you look at goalies and defensemen and forwards. It's what makes it so hard to get in the lineup week in and week out. And I think it's a testament to that kind of the people that we bring in here. But I have to advocate for Patter in the sense that he is one of the biggest influences on this team.
Is it like having a goalie coach, though, like out there on the ice during practice and even on the bench during games, just because he has, he hasn't been out there playing, but man, he's seen it all in these 5 seasons now with the Bulldogs. And again, working with Shep, working with Brandt and you guys, it's got to be a wealth of knowledge it's nice to tap into.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've done a good job of it with all the goalie partners I've had with Ben and Shep and Zach here. I mean, Shep was a little more quiet, and it was tough to to talk to him about some things. But especially with Zach and Ben, and Brandt, I think we've really noticed that me, Zach, and Ben are so close, and we're all really, really good friends, which is nice, and not a lot of goalies can say that. But it's so nice. In practice, we pick each other's brains, and you come back to the bench in a game, whether it's me, Zach, or Patter playing, and they can say little things that they see here, or I really liked your spot on that one, like little goalie terminology that we kind of understand in practice too. But then there's also the stuff where we get on each other, where that was so ugly, or little things like that. So it is like having a little second goalie coach between us 3 goalies, as well as having that Brandt to lean back on.
How helpful has that, you feel, been to your career, to have these voices in practice and during a game, and obviously, like you said, being honest with each other? How much has that made you a better goaltender?
I think it's been instrumental. I think it's super important. You can't always have people say praising you or putting you down. You need to have a healthy mixture of both. And I think it's good. You want to have that from the coaching staff, but it's nice to have that from your teammates and your colleagues as well. Even if you look at it forwards wise, they can, some guys can get some instruction from Sandy, but it's still nice that you see, line mates and teammates and power play units and PK units, talking internally and really like debating. We're grown men now, we've played this sport for 15, 20 years. We know it too. As much as they're going to provide that, that excess level of expertise that they bring, it is nice to talk, to my goalie partners, or those guys talking to their line mates to really, take that next step and become a better hockey player.
Ryan, where do you feel, from end of last year, obviously a tough way for you to end last year, having to watch the Frozen Four, but where do you feel you've grown the most as a goaltender and improved the most?
I think maybe mentality, just since I've got here, even from my freshman year, coming in, I knew I wasn't really going to play with Shep being here, but I was okay with it, and, was really open to just practicing and getting better and learning from him and Patter and Brandt, and, from last year, just getting some experience I was so grateful for, and, being able to play in some big games and having some success in my first collegiate season, is something that, that's all I could ask for. So coming into this year, I think I just really wanted to build off that. And, I've had some experience where it's not my first game anymore. It's not my first time playing a top 10 team. It's not my first time playing, a big program where you get that little nervousness of coming in as a freshman. These are teams that you hear of all the time or whatever it is. So I think it's just a little bit of that, of having, that level of comfortness of, that was my second time playing in Western, even with fans this time or whatever it is. It's kind of just getting, you're accustomed to your surroundings and you really know what to expect. So I think, just that level of, having a little more experience is something that I'm really trying to bank off this year.
Some rapid fire to close this out. This is a note to your goalie partner there, Ben Pat. Who's the best dressed on this team?
Patter's up there. I mean,
he had a really good. It's on here because I told him after the game he had a dynamite blue suit on Saturday.
Absolutely. I mean, coming into, I'm big into dress clothes too, just like Ben is, and we're both into business too. So we always like watching, some shows that have that. We watch our favorite show is Peaky Blinders, actually. Little teaser, but Patter and I are getting our new helmets done in the next little bit here, and the main character on it, we both have him on the back of our helmet, but he's always dressed in a 3-piece suit with a big overcoat and some gloves on. So he's kind of had a little bit of influence on me too, even though it was into it before. So we always talk about it and BS about that. So yeah, Patter's definitely up there.
We'll have to do a Bulldog Insider when we get Zach back in town here. You, him, and Patter can talk about suits. Zach loves suit talk on this podcast. It's Movember. Who's got the best facial hair on this team right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting and getting there. Nothing crazy yet. You know, it's not as thick, but obviously.
I noticed a few of your teammates came in pre-prepared for this month. Patter's a Movember veteran here.
For sure. I think he actually won it my freshman year. His junior year, he won. I don't know if it was the NCHC or even it was the NCAA. He had a real good one, and I think he's kind of trying to go for that run again. But Maddie Anderson's got a really good one. It's nice to see some younger guys that have actually, you know, we've got a couple of older young guys that are getting into it too. But I think we've done a really good job. You know, we've kind of got a Movember page kind of up where, you know, we're kind of trying to get some donations to obviously help out a great cause. So it's nice to see that we have a real good amount of us that are, you know, trying whatever it is. If you can only get a couple hairs here and there, you get some guys like Maddie or Patter that can get a pretty thick one. So it's nice to see.
There are wide age gaps on this team. I'm thinking, sometimes those kids coming right out of high school Movember is a tough month for them. So are playoff beards. What's the website people can go to donate to you guys?
I know UMD Men's Hockey, the Instagram page just shared it, but it is, we actually have a link. I don't know how I could get it up, if I could get it to you and maybe you could put it up or share it through Twitter or something.
Definitely.
Like yeah, or I'm sure that the UMD Twitter and Instagram page will definitely, we're going to keep up with it and, you know, have pictures of the guys, different guys with their mustaches. And, you know, we've already had a bunch of donations so far. So, yeah, we'll definitely get that up and hopefully, you know, everyone can find some time to donate.
Tim Hortons or Caribou?
Tim Hortons.
That's a pure Thunder Bay answer there, right?
Yeah, for sure. More of a Starbucks guy with Caribou, so that might be a different call.
Tim Hortons or Starbucks?
I honestly probably go Starbucks just for the quality, but everything in Tim Hortons, I would go if Tim Hortons in general, not just coffee, I would go Tim Hortons, but if it was just coffee, I'd probably go Starbucks.
Yeah, I had 2 large French vanillas in Kalamazoo this weekend. That's my drink. The border's open to Canada here. Best place to eat in Thunder Bay. If people were heading up there, where would you recommend?
Wow, that's a tough one. I would definitely try getting a pastry native to Thunder Bay. I think I've actually talked about it on here before, but it's called a Persian, and it's basically like a cinnamon roll of some sorts, but it has a special kind of pink icing on it. But it's a pastry that's native to Thunder Bay, and it has been for a long time. It's out of a place called the Persian Man. But it's one thing that my parents always bring up to me whenever they have a chance, and, you know, I give it to some of the coaching staff or, you know, my roommates or whoever it is at the time, you know, always have a big box of it for everyone at home that they could share. And I know my billets for 2 years in junior, they were always eager to get some after they tried it the first time. They would be always asking my parents to bring them down some. So I would definitely say you got to check that out.
So you got some order now that border's open. You got some orders to bring out the next time your parents come down, huh?
Yeah, I'm really fortunate. I mean, last year was my first year that I ever got a chance to play, and, you know, obviously because of COVID, I wasn't able to, and, you know, even just the borders just opening up for this weekend. So my dad's been able to come down a few times where he's had to fly down, but it's gonna be nice. My mom's driving up for the first time this time, and my dad is as well. They won't miss a series, and I'm really fortunate enough to have, like, you know, a good family support as well as family friends where, you know, it's only 3 hours away, so I'll have 10 people a weekend or whatever it is. They come down and they have a great weekend and watch some hockey and do some things, and they're going to be able to travel now. So they're all eager to come down and support us. So definitely have a good support staff coming.
All right, last one. What was your favorite North American League rink to play in?
I would say Bismarck. Bismarck was a good atmosphere. It wasn't the nicest one we played in or anything like that. It was a beautiful arena, but also Bankton, we had a decent amount of success there, which I think contributes to that too. But they always had a great fan base and a great atmosphere to play in, and like I said, contributed to a little bit of success. So that I always enjoyed playing there.
That's Shep's old rink.
It is, yeah. And he obviously had some success there too. So
it's a good rink for UMD goalies. Thanks a lot for joining us, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt.
This is the Bulldog Insider podcast. When we come back, Zach and Bruce will join me.
I'm McHatton.
I'm Jess Myers, and we are the co-hosts of the Rink Live podcast. We really pride ourselves on finding some unique guests and covering some of the topics of the day, not only in college hockey, but kind of across a broad spectrum.
Yep, we also talk junior hockey. We'll get some of that talk in there as well. Women's hockey, men's hockey. We try to talk to people from throughout the game and actually from all over the country. That's been one of the great things on Zoom.
And Mick and I are kind of OG, the Rink Live guys. We were here from the start, about 3 years ago now when things got off the ground, but We brought a fair amount of college hockey experience to this job. I went to Minnesota Duluth. I covered college hockey starting then when I was a student. I've covered the Frozen Four 28 times, and I primarily cover the Minnesota Gophers now for the Rink Live, but dabble in a little bit of everything.
And I've covered St. Cloud State hockey. Now this will be my 12th season. So please check us out on the Rink Live podcast on Mondays.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm Matt Wellens, joined by Zach Schneider, and also joining us again for a second consecutive week on the podcast. Welcome back, the voice of Bulldog hockey on KDAL, my travel partner to Kalamazoo this weekend. We didn't plan it that way, but Delta apparently didn't want us to be traveling alone. Welcome back, Bruce Ciskie.
The numbers from last week must have been just tremendous if you're having me back already.
I have not looked at the analytics from last week's podcast. So this is either a really good decision or it's a really bad decision. I haven't looked at it. No one complained that you were on the podcast last week. So, so that's good. So maybe it's just indifference. Bruce, I'll ask you the same question I asked Zach earlier. What was your big takeaway from Kalamazoo this weekend?
I thought it's two pretty darn good hockey games. Western Michigan, the top six that they have was probably a little better than UMD's top six on Friday night. That was a big difference in that game. Guys like Ethan Frank and Drew Warad, and their top end guys were their top end guys. And I thought UMD's top end guys struggled a bit on Friday, got behind the puck a few times and, weren't as sharp offensively and they weren't as productive as a result. It was the fourth line that got UMD back in that hockey game. And, it was the fourth line that created that tying goal in the third period with Tanner Latterroot scoring it in place of Kyle Levin, who'd gotten hurt earlier in the game. So Saturday, I thought UMD's top guys came to play. I thought that top line with Gilling and Cates and Latterroot was good from the hop, and that was a big difference for them. You need to have, against a team like that who's got such a good top six and maybe not as good a bottom six, Western Michigan. I don't think they're as deep as UMD. I said that going into it. You need to have those top guys humming along, and I thought they did a much better job of that Saturday. And Fanti was sharp as a tack Saturday. He was really good, and he got what he deserved from getting that shutout.
Guys, Ryan, he had a career high 35 saves in that first college shutout on Saturday, which, as he said, it took him till his junior year to get there, but he also didn't play his freshman year. So year two, it took him to get that first college shutout. What has stood out to you the most about his play to start this season? Zach?
Well, he's always been a goalie that is much better when he's square to the puck, when he's finding it, when he's on good angles and he sees the puck through traffic. I mean, we've had some goaltenders come through UMD, like Hunter Shepard, like Kazimir Kaskasuo, Hunter Miska, guys that, it's true of every goaltender, right? That when you're square to the shooter and you're on a good angle, that your saves percentage goes way up. But those guys that I mentioned always found a way, it seems, to make like acrobatic saves or account for being out of position. Ryan Fanti doesn't do that as well as those guys. So when you look at his best games, it's when he is on really good angles and he's not moving around a lot. He's not giving up a lot of rebounds, second chances where he has to make kind of that highlight reel save. He's capable of it for sure, but that's not his strong suit. And so I thought he did that really well on Saturday. And I think there's also something to be said with Zach Schneider out, unfortunately, with an injury, about being the guy. I mean, Ryan Fanti knew on Friday that maybe he didn't play his best game. Maybe that last goal is one that he wants back, but he knew he was going to be back between the pipes on Saturday. And that kind of confidence, I think, shouldn't go unnoticed for UMD. I mean, it'll be great when Stejskal's back in the rotation. But for now, Ryan Fanti is the guy, and I think that allows him to have a shorter memory and not worry too much about some of those mistakes that might come in the next several weeks and months here.
Yeah, that bounce back mentality for Fanti, kind of reminiscent of Hunter Shepard, who really liked being the guy in goal. When we talk about acrobatics, I mean, I feel like Hunter Miska seemed to thrive in the acrobatic role there in the goal as a freshman. Bruce, what has stood out to you as for Ryan Fanti? What's been the key to his strong start?
Oh, first off, I think Zach made a great point, and I hate to try to psychoanalyze goaltenders of all people, but I do think that there's something to be said with Fantz that he knows he's the guy, and there are some goaltenders who operate better with that competition and getting pushed and maybe not knowing who's going to start any given night. And there are some guys that operate better when they know that they're the man. And maybe Fanti's that kind of goaltender. I guess we're going to find out here. With the sounds of it, Zach's going to be out for an extended period of time. So this is Ryan Fanti's net for quite a while here, as long as, knock on wood, he stays healthy. I just think he's that steadiness that he's brought, and he does have a bit more of a flair to play the puck, and I do think that there's a value to that. Hunter Shepard, yes, he tried, he got better at it. It was not his favorite thing to do. He wasn't ever great at it, and I think Fanti's a guy that he is good at playing the puck. He likes to do it. We saw with that Bemidji weekend. He's got a short memory. He'll make a mistake and he'll go back and do it again. I think that's a positive too.
Yeah, I think we've seen him get a lot better at playing the puck after that Bemidji game there. Granted, Bemidji does some things I think that'll create those problems that we saw both Zach and Ryan have there. But that's the thing that stood out to me is Ryan's a lot better at playing that puck. He's very confident with it behind the net. And I think that's helped jumpstart things for the Bulldogs as well, because they don't have, I mean, let's face it, Hunter Shepard didn't have to play the puck. All he had to do was wait for Scott Perenovich to come get it. And then Scott would Scott would tease people behind the net, dare him to come after him. When you had a guy like that, why play the puck? Just give it to Scotty. So we've talked a lot about the impact Dominic Janes has had on the center position so far this year, playing between Blake Biondi and Quinn Olson. But what about the impact Carter Loney has had centering that fourth line that's included 4 different wingers already this year, as UMD's gone through some injuries on that fourth line? Bruce, I'll let you start on that one.
He's been great. For a freshman and I know he's an older freshman, I get that, but for any freshman to walk in the door and do the things he's done, start a year on the fourth line. He's still on the fourth line, but he has earned penalty kill time. That's not some sort of an accident. That's because he's earned it and he's done really well. And now he's a main guy in that PK rotation. He's a playmaker. He's slick with the puck. He's a smart guy. He's got good feet. And there's a lot of things Carter Loney does well. I said after Saturday's game, I'm not one to make a lot of predictions about what the lineup's going to look like in 3 months, but I will guarantee you that as long as the health is good, Carter Loney is going to be up the lineup at some point here. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. They're moving him up because he's going to make them move him up.
Zach, what stood out to you about Carter jumping in the way he has?
Well, and you mentioned the different wingers that he's gotten to play with, some guys in and out of the lineup just naturally, but also some injuries. Luke Lohheit, was kind of a calming presence before he got hurt on that team, an older guy that's kind of had that role before, but now he's out and that line kind of continued on the same path without Luke there. And that's probably a lot due to the play of Carter Loney. Now, one of the things that we've seen with guys before is as they move up the lineup, they change their game, right? And they try to overreach and do things differently than what got them the chance to move up in the lineup or get more playing time. And Carter hasn't done that so far through 8 games. I mean, as he's gotten more time and he's gotten on the PK and he's done this, he plays the same way every time he's on the ice, no matter what situation he's in. And that's what I think the coaching staff is going to want if they move him up to that third or second line throughout the year, is just go out there and beat Carter Loney, because he's been great on the fourth line. And if they move him up, they're going to want more of the same. The other thing that he and Dom have done by solidifying maybe that third and fourth line center position is not force Scott Sandlin to move Noah Cates back to the middle, which is a huge impact on this team. So to have 4 centermen now that I think, largely can be trusted in any situation. All of them have their different strengths, but they've got some good strength down the middle, as long as those 4 stay healthy, to keep the captain on the wing where he's more impactful and more comfortable. That's a huge impact as well. And it doesn't come directly from them, but them playing their position allows Noah to play his position as well.
Yeah, Bruce, you and I kind of talked about, does Carter Loney get bumped up the lineup, or do you just not mess with anything? I think the spot where it'd be curious to see Carter play is in between Kobe Roth and Kobe Bender, if he can jumpstart those two. When we look at Jesse Jocks, he reminds me a lot of Jared Thomas. People wanted him to be that top liner, first line center, but man, he was just always a solid third line center there. And that's when he was at his best. I don't know if Jesse's working right now with the 2 Kobe's. I mean, man, it's a fine line that Scott Sandlin has to work, and maybe he dabbles coming up here, but I mean, things are, you definitely don't want to break up that top line of Gilling, Laderoux, and Cates. They've been really hot offensively, and I think that is your best defensive line. The James Biondi Olsen, they didn't have a point against Western, but they're still flying all over. They give a lot of teams fits with their speed. Bruce, what do you think there? How does Scott Sandlin kind of balance this all?
I think one thing you got to think about is, Kobe Roth is a guy that he the way he thinks the game. And I'm not trying to dog Jesse or Kobe Bender at all. Kobe and Kobe play well together, but I think having a guy in the middle that thinks the way Carter Loney thinks and can make plays the way Carter can make plays, it's different than Jesse. And I do think that'd be a different dynamic that might get Kobe Roth going a little bit. I mean, he's got 1 goal in 8 games. I think you'd like to think you can get a 5th-year guy who scored goals in this program for 4 years, get him going a little bit, but it might take a different center to do that. So I think at some point you're going to see them try that. If things continue to trend the way that they have been, where Kobe Roth has 1 goal and Kobe Bender hasn't been terribly impactful, maybe try something different in the middle of that line. Again, it's not dogging Jesse. It's a matter of, this isn't working. Let's try this and see if this works.
Well, and the other conversation that can happen then is if you're just flip-flopping Loney and Jacques in the lineup at those center positions, is talking to Jesse at that point and saying, hey, here's what we need from you. We don't need you to be a 30-point-a-year guy. We need you to go back to being the guy that you were the first couple of years that you were here, when you were able to make an impact. Maybe it wasn't as a top 6 guy, but getting Jesse to buy into his role then as the 4th-line center and between Almquist and Clevin or Lowhite when he's back, and really getting him back to what made him most impactful as a Bulldog. If that can happen, then it's a great move. But that conversation needs to happen simultaneously, because playing on the 4th line is a lot different than playing between the Kobe's on the 2nd line.
I was going to say, we saw it with Jared. I think it took a little while for him to embrace being on that 4th line. And when him and Blake Young got put together down there, it made a big difference in the way that 4th line produced. And it went from being a line that was kind of throw it out there when guys are tired to being a regular rotation, roll 4 lines. And this team, I don't care who's on it, is the most effective when they're rolling 4 lines. And to me, it's a big difference from this year to last year, because right now you get in the playoffs, you're rolling 4 lines.
That's a great comparison at this point for Jesse Jacques in his career is Jared Thomas. He finally bought into the role that UMD wanted him to buy into. And then in the end of his senior year, he got to produce the offense that he always wanted to produce. And he produced it at the most important time of his career at UMD in the national tournament. So that's a perfect comparison. And maybe Jesse can follow the same track as Jared Thomas did.
All right, we're going to wrap this up. The UMD women are still off this weekend. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little jealous that they got 3 weeks off in the middle of the season. I don't know if that's too many, or I'm sure Maura Kroll would say it's too many here. UMD women are off this weekend because Olympic qualifying is getting underway. It starts Thursday, runs through Sunday. You guys want to make some Olympic qualifying predictions? We're probably all going to pick the same teams.
I'm going to hold off because I do enough. I say enough dumb things that people can call me out for. I don't need to add this to the list.
Bruce, this podcast is made on saying dumb things. Group C has the Czech Republic, Hungary, Norway, and Poland.
Yeah, the only thing I have to go on here, Matt, and this is boring, but I don't know more about hockey in general, or especially women's international hockey than Maura Kroll. And she picked, I think it was the Czech Republic, Sweden, and was it Germany, the other host? She
did, Germany. Yeah.
So I'm gonna really cheat and off Maura's test and pick those 3 as the qualifiers.
Why'd you give away the answers to Bruce? The segment was totally just to embarrass Bruce and see if he had been paying attention.
You didn't send me a text or something on that before.
Sorry about that.
The only thing I couldn't remember is who was playing in each of the qualification groups. I know who the hosts were. I'm just trying to think if there's one of these that might be ripe for an upset, and I got to think maybe Denmark's the only one that I can think of that might have a real chance of pulling off an upset and getting there.
Yeah, I believe when we talked to Maura Kroll, she said, so Group C is the Czech Republic. They're the top seed against Hungary, Norway, and Poland. The Czechs have Katarina Mrzova, Katka. Maura picked the Czech Republic to get out of there, and they are the top remaining seed, so they should move on. Group D is hosted by Germany. No Jenny Harris anymore for Germany. She's out of Olympic qualifying. She tested positive for COVID, but the Germans still have Nina Jope-Smith. I think they beat Denmark in the World Championship. So Germany, they're the host out of there. Group E, which is Sweden, France, Slovakia, and Korea. I believe it was Maura said France might challenge Sweden, but I believe I saw on Instagram, Emma Soderberg shared it, or the UMD women shared it. Sweden beat France 8-0 recently. So if you're looking for an upset there, I don't think it's going to happen. So we're just going to cheat off of Maura and say that the Bulldogs are all advancing here.
Yeah, as much as I would like to see in women's hockey, I think needs an upset. Maybe not in this qualifying round, but once they get to the Olympics, I would, as much as I like watching USA and Canada play in the gold medal game, and we've got a lot of former Bulldogs, in the running for those two teams as well. But women's hockey, I think, needs a new Olympic gold medalist, whether it's Finland or Sweden. Somebody needs to really upset the US and Canada and their dominance in that. So I'd love to see that once the Olympics roll around next year.
I feel like a Switzerland or Germany run would be a Cinderella story everyone could get behind. It
would be really good for the sport to have somebody other than the US and Canada in that gold medal game and win the gold medal. But we'll see. They're two tough teams, obviously.
All right, we'll see how Olympic qualifying goes this weekend, and maybe we'll get some. I guess it would be our first Olympians since Cassie Bettenall and Ashton Bell and Maddie Rooney technically have to be named to Olympic teams, I believe, yet on those centralized rosters. Though we think we'll see all three of them in there, but maybe we can get some of the first Bulldog Olympians on the podcast next week. Zach, thanks for joining me from the cities, and Bruce, thanks for joining me whatever closet you're in there right now.
This is my office. What are you talking about?
Oh, okay. That's your office. All right. Thanks to Bruce and Zach, as well as Ryan Fanti, for taking time out of his day to meet up before practice and talk to us on the podcast. Bulldog Insider comes out every Thursday, and you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and rate us. For more Bulldogs hockey coverage, visit therinklive.com and DuluthNewsTribune.com. Thanks to our sponsor, Essentia Health, for their continued support of the Bulldog Insider podcast. One last thing from Bruce and Zach. Zach, what's the TV schedule like this weekend?
We are back on the air Friday and Saturday on My9 Sports as the men take on Colorado College. I suppose I could take this time. I just responded to it on Facebook this morning, but there's been some talk about why the Western Michigan games were not on My9 this past weekend. It was suggested very nicely by somebody who runs that Facebook page that it was because of my family situation here and being with my daughter and my wife in the Twin Cities through the season. While that would be true, we had already decided, it had already been decided that we weren't going to be traveling for the Western Series. The only away series we've got on My9 this year will be North Dakota and St. Cloud State, and we are going to be using the away announcers for both those series. That was already decided before any of this happened. So I certainly appreciate all the love and support. It was a very nice message by that person on Facebook to the people that were wondering, but for planning purposes, I just want to get ahead of this. NCHC.com or your NCHC TV subscription will be valuable to you this year if you're wanting to watch the away series other than that North Dakota and St. Cloud State series.
Bruce, I hear these games could be on the radio as well this weekend.
Gosh, I hope so. Craig Baracus and I will have them. 6:30 pre-games both nights, 6:10 a.m., 103.9 FM, online, KDAL610.com. You can also listen via our app or via iHeartRadio.
All right. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Matt Wellens during games if you're maybe sitting in a deer blind and trying to be quiet out there. Thanks, everyone, to listening. We'll catch you next week. Of course, it'd be night, so you shouldn't be hunting, but, you know, unless you're one of those people.
Somebody's going to email you and tell you shouldn't be hunting at night, but whatever.
You know.